What's up, everybody? Welcome in for another pregame talks for us. We're going to start things off today with a little look at the last week's games. So starting off with our Friday night football matchup, had the Stallions visiting the Kings at Lynn Family Field. Really a great game all across. Kind of a defensive game, I would say, if nothing else. So really, we're going to look to see out of these two teams this week, kind of proving their offense is more capable than they were last week, or maybe these defenses were as good as they seem to be, just based on last week. Then another game for us. We had the Aviators visiting the Storm. Storm really looked good. I think that was really a count of Coach Beck. Not the best attendance, not terrible though, but I think both teams really looked competitive. Thing about the Aviators, they really could have won this game if you take away some of those takeaways that they lost. So uh, ultimately, we'll look to see the Storm probably going to try and be dominant this week, but they will be up against a tough match. And then we've got the Aviators. They will be playing tonight, a little Friday night football action, and I really expect them to kind of show out. But ultimately, they are going against the DC Defenders, so we'll see how that goes for them. But the Defenders visited the Battlehawks. We're in the dome. Didn't go great, as we can tell. 10-16. Really, Tomu, a lot of takeaways on his account, so we'll look to see him take those away or lower them as much as possible. And then the Battlehawks, they really need to kind of clean their offense up. But ultimately, I think the Battlehawks are in for a tough match this week. So it'll be interesting to see how they compare, because it might say more about the Defenders than it does about the Battlehawks, depending how they do this week. But our final game that we'll talk about is the Gamblers when they visited the Renegades. A little bit of a Texas tumble, Texas tussle, whatever you want to call it. Gamblers really looked rough. What was most important for me is they may have found their quarterback. Oh, hard to say. So ultimately, they could do well, but it's really going to be a test because the Renegades look good. So maybe they're just up against the best team and they are a competitive team, but they definitely got a lot of work to do. So I'd expect them to have an interesting showing against the Stallions. But the Renegades, really, really dominant, and I expect them to kind of be a front runner the whole season. Looking at that, we did get our players of the week. So for our first player of the week, Jordan Mosley from the Battlehawk is the defensive player of the week. Really did well, had a great performance, and what was that? One interception at least, which those takeaways, I mean, Tomlin was throwing them, but ultimately those takeaways, they can really, really change the pace of the game, the tone of the game, and how everything goes. Then our special teams player of the week, we got Matt McCrane, first 4-point field goal ever in spring football, or any football, I suppose. So good on him, but he said it himself, he went 1 for 2, so not great, but, did earn himself the player of the week status. So we'll see who it'll be next week. Probably another kicker that makes another 4-point field goal, but we will see. But Mr. McCrane has been a proven talent in spring football. Then if we go on, of course, our offensive player of the week, Austin Reed, really did well. Set the passing record for a single game. Really took control of the offense. It seems like we're gonna be seeing him championing the Renegades for the rest of the season. So quite impressive job, I'd say, by him, and really, really awesome team performance out of the Renegades. So I expect them to be a front runner across the board. And on that note, we did get some power rankings, so I did kind of want to dive into those. So these ones are kind of released by the league. So we got the Renegades leading, of course. This shouldn't surprise anyone. They had such a dominant performance. I would not surprise anything, or would not be surprised at all. Then we've got St. Louis Battlehawks. This, I think, is a little high. That's where I start to have some questions. And then the Stallions, number 3, I feel like is justified. The Storm, number 4, also I feel justified. And then all the teams that lost. I think the Gamblers, that's a fair placement. Where the Aviators are, I think I might like to see the Aviators possibly. So the Defenders, I think, need to move up, possibly, possibly above the Storm, because they had a tough team in the Battlehawks. But with these rankings, I did kind of want to compare them. But where I do feel we could easily see some movement is the Louisville Orlando. Just based on teams, I think they're a fair match for each other. The Defenders, I don't expect them to be sitting at the bottom for long. But we also got RJ Young's power ranking, so we're gonna compare them, see kind of what he had thought for everyone. Gamblers down at the bottom. Everyone's going to have that. And then he has the Kings at in the 7th position. Now, that I feel is too low. So, given the last one, I feel probably that one, the original, was probably more justified. But that 7th placement does kind of, I wouldn't expect them to be there for long. And then in the 6th placement, they have the Defenders, the same one as the original. So, maybe that is a fair place for them. And then they've got the Aviators in the place of the Kings. Okay, so it seems those two were switched. Fair, but I don't know how I feel about those movements. Honestly, the Aviators probably in that 6 range, possibly 7. Then we got the Storm at number 4. Yeah, that's exactly the same as they had it before. And then the Stallions, and the Battlehawks, and the Renegades. Okay, so pretty much all same 1 through 4. We just had some movement between the Kings and the Aviators. So we go back at that and look at the original. Really, just these two switched, and I can see that as a justifiable move. But I do feel the Kings really put on a strong showing. Aviators look good, but I think they're a much sloppier team. Let's say. So maybe this original one is more justified, but we got one from ESPN as well. Compliments of Matt Willis. So of course, number 1 going to be the Renegades. No surprise there. Then number 2, they've got the Birmingham Stallions. Now I see that as a justifiable change compared to the Battlehawks. Because the Battlehawks, it was kind of a tough showing for them offensively, and I'd say that's actually probably justified. Orlando Storm. So I actually kind of like this list a little bit more than the original, with the Storm in number 3 and then the Battlehawks in number 4. And honestly, depending on what the Defenders are this season, really says a lot about what the Battlehawks are, or at least right now, because it's week 2 and that's the only person they've played. And then 5 for the DC Defenders. Now that is justifiable placement for the Defenders. These two are very evenly matched. It was only a 16-10 in the game. So I feel that's probably the best place for the Defenders. And then 6 with the Aviators. And then 7 for the Kings. So possible. It seems there is some agreement on, 7th placement for the Kings. But I feel they'll quickly climb the rankings. And then the Gamblers, of course, down in the bottom. No surprise there, at all. They had a lot of work to do. So it'll be a big week for everyone. I think most these teams in the bottom, the Aviators, the Kings, the Gamblers, and it will be really interesting to see, because Friday Night Football, we've got the Aviators versus the Defenders. So what's going to happen there? Because someone's going to have to win, and thus there's going to be some movement here. And I think it'll be a big prove-it week for both of these teams. The Defenders, defending champs, just lost, playing under the lights, really need a win here. And the Aviators just lost, also need a win here, and they lost to Coach Beck. So I'm interested to see how that all plays out for us. But I do feel the Storm is kind of going to be a strong contender this year. Aviators, of course, also going to be in some games, I'd say. But if we look back at the week, really, really a great week. We had close games except for the Dallas Gamblers matchup. But other than that, it was a very competitive football on the field. So that was enjoyable to watch. And I feel like most people enjoyed it to a large degree. And when we talk about the Battlehawks, they got 30,000 fans their first game of the year. So I expect that number to grow throughout the season, especially if they continue to keep winning. But really, a great week of football. It seemed like the fans enjoyed it. This is a picture from the Renegades. Really, really interesting to see how strong spring football's felt this year. 2026, we've really came in fighting. And on that note, I did kind of want to take a look at how the attendance was across the four games that we had in week one. So if you look at the Renegades, kind of low numbers, and this is on Wikipedia, so do not trust all these numbers, but it's some of the only data we got. So we got 8,870 in Dallas, and I get it, Dallas is kind of a packed market, but hopefully that number grows over the season. Louisville Kings, so smaller field, so they did kind of sell it out, which is like close to their max capacity. I don't know exactly how many people attended, but we had a very good showing out of the Kings. Storm, their stadium holds a lot more people, so I did have some concerns regarding how many people attended at 11,127. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that number grow as well as kind of spring football takes hold in Florida. But we'll have to see how that goes. They do play this week, so hopefully we'll see more fans. And then the Battlehawks. Come on, 31,000 fans. Impressive showing out of our Battlehawk fans. They really came in and made their voice heard. But on that note, let's take a look at the viewership. So this is just kind of the AI overview. Generally somewhere between 650,000 and 900,000 we were talking for average viewership for that first week, so pretty good comparatively for some. The first Friday game, not as good as it was last year, but there's ultimately some dispute between that. And then we hope to see this trend to continue, but we saw that 18% increase between this year and last year, just like overall. So pretty good showing for the UFL. But on that note, the Friday night viewership numbers, there is some skepticism about what they actually were. So some are claiming that it was 649,000, but then at the same time, we have some claiming that it was 800,000. So the question really is, what was it? Odds are it was probably somewhere between the two. And ultimately, where the UFL did do well is kind of in this 0.12 that demographic, 18 to 49, because that's kind of a really where their audience is kind of the adult males in the country. But on that note, the biggest or most watched game of the kickoff weekend was on ESPN, and it was that Saturday starter, the matchup between the DC Defenders and the Battlehawks. So really, really a great showing. I imagine a lot of this viewership was kind of based around one, DC's very popular. They're their team. And then St. Louis, really popular as well. So a great showing for that game. And I wonder what the numbers will be for week two, because we did kind of see this, we're up 50% on for most part across both games that ESPN had. So interesting to see. We'll see if this trend continues, because if it does, that's really good news for spring football. So I look forward to that. But when we turn now, let's take a look at kind of what we have ahead. So our first game of the week is Friday Night Football, of course, and that's going to be the Aviators hosting the Defenders, and that's 8 p.m. on Fox. Then next we'll have Louisville hitting the road, going to Orlando. They'll be playing Saturday night. That's on ESPN. Then the weekend finishes with Birmingham playing on Sunday at 6 p.m. And that's on NFL Network, which I'll bring up in just a second. And then what's most surprising is that week two is actually going to end on a Tuesday night, which is a good game. You got the Battlehawks visiting the Renegades, and that's going to be at 8 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. But Tuesday night game aside, the fact that there's going to be a game on NFL Network is actually quite interesting. And it seems these games are actually flexed out of the ESPN network system. So like in certain cases, it was a step up, and in others it was a step down. So in this case, for the game coming this weekend, it was actually moved from ESPN2 to NFL Network. So kind of not great, but it's better than just being something like requiring their app or a subscription in itself. But then the next game that they did was actually a Thursday night game, which was going to be on a ESPN Plus, but it's actually going to move, from what I can tell, to ESPN2. Or, I mean, not to ESPN2, to NFL Network. So it'll be exciting to see how the the NFL Network broadcast is. I imagine it'll be the exact same as if it's on ESPN, but there could be some differences. But when we really look into the game, so our Friday night football game, that's going to be the Aviators hosting the Defenders, should be a good matchup. Both teams got something to prove. Then we've got the Saturday showdown. So Kings visiting the Storm. The Storm's going to be trying to put another win on their record, while the Kings are going to be trying to get back into it. And I expect them to kind of clean up some of their issues, or at least the Kings will, from last week. So I expect them to kind of come out of the gate swinging, and they look competitive the entire game. Then the Sunday skirmish. We've got the Stallions visiting the Gamblers. Probably will go well for the Stallions, but it'll be interesting to see how the Gamblers look right out of the gate. You know, they did have kind of a tough week last week, so I wonder how much they've cleaned up. What are they changing? What are they testing? Is it going to be looking better on the field, or is it still going to be a little sloppy for them? Then the Stallions, I expect them to really kind of pick up right where they left off, and I think they'll hit the ground running. But our Tuesday tussle, which will be our game of the week, that's going to be the Battlehawks visiting the Renegades. So we just had, most of those power rankings, they had those as these two teams as the top two teams in the league. So this will be interesting to see how they compare, because if you've got the Battlehawks going in there and they defeat the Renegades, then if you're talking about DC, they're probably looking pretty good. But if they go in there and the Renegades kind of stomp them, not going to look great for the Battlehawks. But regardless, it should be a great game because, the defenses should be pretty comparable. I do feel the offensive power of the Renegades might blow the Battlehawks out of the water, but we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But across all of these games, I think as a fan, we're going to be really in for a treat. It's going to be good matchups. It should be competitive games, and I would expect there to be some pretty high scoring games this week as well. Just given, how things looked last week, clean it up for a week. I think they'll be really, really looking good this week. So for week 2, we've got our 4 games this week. I kind of already went over. So what I do find interesting here is that the Aviators will be hosting, so we'll see what their home field advantage is like because it's their first home game of the year, as well as the Gamblers. And they moved the Gamblers to a new facility, so it'll be interesting to see if all the fans went and kind of what their attendance looks like for that. But I also just wanted to kind of take a look at the lines real quick. I can't really show them, but I will just kind of go over them with you. So we got the Defenders given 2.5 to the Aviators. So I expect the Aviators probably. I would take the Defenders. And then the over is 39.5. Probably gonna take I'd probably take the over on this one. Then for tomorrow's game, Louisville, we got the lines at 3.5. I'd probably take the Kings on the plus 3.5. But then also for the total that we have, 40.5, I feel like I'm taking the under on 40.5 for points scored in Saturday's game. Then for our Sunday game, we got the Stallions. They'll be given 7.5. I would take the Stallions at the 7.5. And the over is 44.5. It probably will hit the over. So I would also take the over. But we'll see how the Gamblers do, because 7.5, that's the biggest line we've seen this season. Also the biggest line of the week. So it could be tough for the Gamblers to overcome that. Then our final game, our Tuesday game, that'll be Battlehawks versus the Renegades, and we've got line's about 3.5, and I favoring the Renegades. I think I'll take the Renegades. And then the over is 42.5. I'm taking the over as well on that. All in all, pretty good games. And then also we did get some props out, so that will be interesting to see. Can't really go over those ones here, but they do kind of have it quite similar to what you'd see in the NFL or college. So for those that are interested, there is that available to them. But otherwise, I just kind of wrap up. Should be a great week of football for us, and I just want to thank those of you that joined us today. All in all, I expect the Tuesday game. It may be weird and out of schedule to really be a great game to watch, but then this NFL Network game, I do have some concerns about. We'll see how that goes, but I think our first two games of the week are kind of both night games, Friday and Saturday. Really going to be great for DC and also probably for Louisville. So ultimately, I expect us to be in for a treat this week. So those of you that joined us, appreciate it. And I do have one final thing to go over, which is going to be Monday's headline today. So I have two of them for us, and it's either going to be Storm leads the league. So I think if the Storm puts on a dominant show, people might be talking about them. They put up a bunch of yards, put up a bunch of points. They're going to be talking about them the same way that Dallas has been talked about this last week. And then our next one is that, Houston shocks the champ. So if the Gamblers turn it around and they actually put a beating on Birmingham, the whole league might change. If we see our number 8 team move up to 3, 4, 5, that's going to be a great competitive edge, I'd say, for the league, because it's going to be kind of a dog race to the end of the season. But if you have any ideas of what the headline will be on Monday, feel free to let me know. And otherwise, appreciate you joining us. Like and subscribe. You know how the whole deal is. Turn on those notifications, because I have been kind of going at us at some random times, and I want you guys to be able to join in these discussions when we are going live. But I'm working on cutting up some stuff, and we'll be getting some more content out for everybody. But otherwise, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us. We'll probably pick this back up Sunday night for a little nightcap, or either Monday for a little overreaction Monday. But otherwise, thanks again for joining. I appreciate your time, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye now.